I never thought it would come to this. But when my landlord knocked on my door that morning, I already knew deep down I was out of options. 3 months behind on rent, no job, no one to call, no help coming. When I opened the door, there he was. Mr. Dalton, crisp shirt, steel gray hair, and a look in his eye that made my skin prickle. He wasn't the yelling type. He didn't need to be. "Miss Carter," he said, eyes drifting over me. My robe had slipped a little, but I was too tired to care. "You're 3 months behind. I'm running out of patience." I clutched the robe tighter. "I just need a little more time," I said quietly. He stepped inside without asking, closing the door behind him. The air shifted, thicker, tense. "You're a smart girl, Riley," he said, taking a slow step forward. "Pretty, too. It's a shame really seeing you struggle like this." I backed up, bumping into the edge of the kitchen counter. My voice barely came out. "I'm doing everything I can." He nodded thoughtfully. "That may be true, but effort doesn't pay the mortgage." I didn't reply. What could I say? I'd already tried everything. Extra shifts, selling furniture, even skipping meals. Nothing worked. Then came the pause. A moment of silence that lasted just a little too long. "There may be another way," he said, voice lower now. I felt it before he said it. The offer, the kind you don't write down, the kind you don't say out loud until you're sure the other person has no way out. I stared at him, heart pounding. "What? What do you mean?" He took another step. "Come on, Riley, you know exactly what I mean. No one has to know, just between us." There it was a line drawn in the sand. One step forward, and there was no going back. I should have said no, should have told him to get out, but I didn't, because in that moment I wasn't thinking with pride. I was thinking with hunger, desperation, fear, and something else I didn't want to name. He watched me squirm, waiting for the answer he already saw written on my face. "I can make your problems disappear," he said barely above a whisper, "but you have to say yes." The room felt smaller. My skin felt too thin. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And then I nodded just once. His smile was slow, knowing. He stepped closer and reached for the belt of my robe. "Good girl," he murmured. Later, I would tell myself it didn't mean anything, that it was just a deal, just survival. But in that moment, as he led me toward the bedroom, I realized something that terrified me more than anything. I didn't feel powerless. I felt something else, and I wasn't sure I wanted it to stop. The door clicked shut behind us. My breath caught. Mr. Dalton didn't speak at first. He just watched me, his eyes unreadable, his fingers unfastening the top button of his shirt as if this were just another business transaction. But it wasn't. Not for me. I stood still in the dim light of the bedroom, arms tight around my waist, every nerve in my body screamed to run. And yet, I didn't move. Something in me wouldn't let me. "You can still back out," he said casually, rolling his sleeves. "But if you stay, don't pretend to be surprised." I didn't answer, just stared at him. My silence was my decision. He stepped closer, one hand brushing my jaw. I flinched but didn't pull away. "You don't have to enjoy this," he murmured. "But you might." His hand moved to the belt of my robe. I let him untie it. It slipped from my shoulders, pooling at my feet. The look in his eyes changed. Not crude, not hungry, but assessing like I was something expensive, something he could finally touch. The mattress dipped behind me as I sat down, legs trembling slightly. He stood over me for a moment, then leaned in slowly, deliberately, his hand cupping the side of my face. It was supposed to feel humiliating, but it didn't. It felt dangerous, like I had just handed someone the match and he was deciding whether to light the fire or burn down the house. "I knew you'd come around," he whispered. When he kissed me, it wasn't gentle. It wasn't cruel either, just controlled, like everything he did. And in that control, something twisted in me, a flicker of heat where shame should have been. I kissed him back at first, hesitantly, then with more force than I expected. Maybe it was survival instinct, maybe it was defiance, or maybe deep down I just wanted to see what it felt like to stop being the one who always begged. His shirt came off next, then mine. Layers fell between us like excuses. He didn't rush. He took his time learning my body like it was a language only he was fluent in. I should have felt numb, but the longer it went on, the more my body betrayed me, responding to his touch, to the way his voice dropped when he whispered my name. I didn't moan, didn't cry, but he could feel it. My breathing, my shifting hips, the way I arched into him without thinking. "You're not what I expected," he said against my skin. "Neither are you," I wanted to say, but I stayed silent, let my body speak instead. And when it was over, when we lay in silence, our skin still slick with heat, I waited for the shame to crash in. It didn't. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, pulse still racing, and felt clear. Not proud, not broken, just real. "You okay?" he asked, pulling on his pants, his tone almost gentle now. I nodded once. "Yeah." He watched me for a moment longer, then grabbed his phone. "I have another offer," he said, casual like always. "If you're interested." I sat up, robe still open, brows furrowing. "What kind of offer?" He turned, his face unreadable again. "There are men I know, clients, well-connected, discreet, and they'd pay very well for a woman like you." I blinked. "You're joking." His lips curved. "Does it look like I'm joking?" Silence settled between us like dust. I should have felt disgusted, but I didn't, because a tiny voice in the back of my head whispered, "What if this is your way out?" Mr. Dalton watched my face closely, and when I didn't say no, he stepped forward again. "It's one night, 2 men, no strings, but a lot of cash." My throat tightened. "2? You won't be alone," he added. "I'll be there. I'll make sure nothing goes wrong." I couldn't speak. All I could hear was my own breath, shaky fast. He leaned closer. "Say yes, and I'll handle the rest." I looked down at my hands, then up at him, and slowly, against every instinct I had, I nodded. His smirk deepened. "Good girl." The next evening came faster than I expected. Mr. Dalton had already laid everything out. The address, the payment, the dress. It was a deep burgundy number, tight, low-cut, expensive in a way that felt dangerous. He handed it to me with a calm expression, like he was just giving me a coat to wear, not a new identity. "These will help," he added, placing a box of black stilettos on the bed. "Trust me, you'll look irresistible." I stood in front of the mirror for what felt like forever, adjusting the straps, smoothing the fabric over my hips. The woman staring back at me didn't feel like Riley Carter anymore. She looked composed, polished, unreachable, but underneath I was trembling. "You look perfect," Mr. Dalton said from the doorway. "They'll love you." "They?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He smirked. "Friends, generous ones. You give them a good night, and you'll never have to think about rent again." A knock on the front door cut through the air. My stomach dropped. "They're here," he said smoothly, as if it were nothing. He straightened his shirt collar. "You ready?" I hesitated, then nodded. He opened the door. 2 men stepped inside. Both wore tailored suits. Both carried themselves like they were used to, getting what they wanted. One was taller, broader, hair slicked back like a man who made $1,000,000 deals before breakfast. The other was leaner, quieter, his eyes sharp, scanning every detail like nothing got past him. Their attention snapped to me the moment they walked in. I tried to stand tall, tried not to look afraid. Mr. Dalton made the introductions, but I barely heard the names. My blood was too loud in my ears. "This is Riley," he said. "Treat her well." They didn't speak, just nodded. I turned, leading them toward the bedroom. My heels tapped against the hardwood floor, each step louder than the last. Inside the room, I paused. They followed close. I could feel their presence behind me, like a storm about to break. The taller one moved first. He stepped behind me, his hands finding my waist, fingers firm but not forceful. His touch was deliberate, like he was testing me. My breath caught. The other man came in slower, circling around, until he stood in front of me. His eyes never left mine. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. The way he looked at me, calm, assured, hungry, was more than enough. The taller one leaned in, his breath brushing my ear. "Let's take care of this." His hand grazed the strap of my dress, letting it slip down slowly. The fabric pulled at my feet. My skin prickled under their gaze. Neither rushed. Hands followed the dress, trailing over my arms, down my back, across my hips. They didn't just touch. They learned me every inch. And still, I didn't move. Because deep inside the fear, somewhere I hadn't dared look before, was something else. Curiosity. One of them took my hand, guiding me to the bed. The other watched as I sat, legs crossing slowly, chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. They were waiting for me to signal it was okay. And in that silence, in that strange, respectful stillness, I realized something. This time, I had the control. So, I leaned back slightly, tilted my head, and whispered the two words that made everything shift. "I'm ready." The taller one, Blake, I think that was his name, stepped closer first. His hand slid up my thigh, slow and deliberate, his fingertips pressing gently against Bear's skin, as if memorizing the shape of me. "Soft," he murmured. "I like that." The other man, Darren, stood a few steps back, just watching, his arms folded, eyes dark. I could feel him measuring every breath I took, every flicker of hesitation. Blake leaned in, his lips brushing along my collarbone, sending a ripple down my spine. I sucked in a breath, but didn't stop him. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need to. I'd already said yes. But the strange thing was, he still moved, like a man who was waiting for me to guide the rhythm that threw me, because I expected them to take, but instead they were watching, reading me, adjusting to me like I was the one leading, and maybe I was. Blake's lips trailed down slow and warm, while Darren finally moved in. He knelt beside me on the bed, one hand finding my jaw, tilting my face toward his. "Can I?" he asked softly. I hesitated, then nodded. His kiss was gentler than I expected. Not urgent, just deep, steady, and it caught me off guard how easily I leaned into it, how quickly my hands found his chest, his neck, pulling him closer. Between the two of them, something awakened in me. Not just arousal, but awareness of my body, of theirs, of this moment. Blake's mouth moved lower, his breath hot against my skin, while Darren kissed me harder now, his hands sliding into my hair. They weren't fighting for space. They were working in sync, and I was the center of it. My breathing grew shallow. My hands trembled against their skin, my fingers tracing muscle, texture, warmth. I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to fake control or play weak. I could just be. Their hands found each other. Across me, coordinating, adjusting, grounding me with each movement. I felt like I was being handled and held at once. Darren whispered something into my neck, something low and unintelligible, but it made my skin light up. Blake looked up at me from between my thighs, his voice almost teasing. "You're not nervous anymore." I wasn't. At least not the same kind of nervous. It wasn't fear. It was the kind of anticipation that coils in your gut like a spring waiting to snap, and then I let go completely. My back arched, my voice cracked, my hand gripped Darren's wrist, while Blake's mouth sent another wave through me. I didn't try to hold back the sound this time because there was no one left to pretend for. And when it passed, when I fell back into the pillows, breathless and undone, I heard Blake chuckle softly. "She's incredible," he murmured. Darren smiled against my cheek. "We're just getting started." I turned my face toward him, eyes half-lidded, still buzzing. "Then don't stop." He didn't. Neither did Blake. They moved me, shifted me, carried me like I weighed nothing, laying me on my side, then pulling me onto my hands and knees. Darren moved behind me now, his hands strung on my hips, steadying me. "You ready for more?" he asked, voice low, edged with something deeper. I nodded once, and when he entered me, slow and thick and steady, I gasped. My arms trembled, legs shaking under the weight of it. of him. Blake positioned himself in front of me, his hand cupping my chin, lifting my gaze. "Eyes on me," he whispered. So I looked straight into him and opened my mouth, welcoming him. Their rhythm began, and I surrendered. The room pulsed with heat. Darren moved behind me with slow, relentless force, his rhythm patient, deliberate, almost reverent. Each thrust sent a shock through my spine, my fingers digging into the sheets just to stay grounded. In front of me, Blake never looked away. His hand stayed at my jaw, thumb grazing my cheek, keeping me focused, keeping me present. His other hand rested on my hip, syncing with Darren's pace, anchoring me in a rhythm I didn't know I could lose myself in. I opened my mouth again, and Blake filled it slowly, steadily, his breath hitching when I moved just right. It was all too much and yet not enough. The two of them guided me like a song only they could hear, one that pulsed through my bones, rewired my nerves, dismantled everything I thought I knew about power and surrender. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was participating. Every movement, every sound, every sharp inhale or muffled moan, I was giving as much as I took. Maybe even more. Blake groaned above me, his voice ragged. "God, Riley, you're dangerous." Darren's grip on my hips tightened. His rhythm faltered for half a beat, just enough for me to realize I had shifted the control. They weren't leading anymore. That realization hit me like. I arched back harder, pushed into Darren with more force, let my hands trail up Blake's thighs as I took him deeper, watching his jaw clench. They had wanted me to be a fantasy. Now I had become theirs. Pleasure built inside me like a storm. Fast and volatile, threatening to snap at any second. Every nerve burned, every muscle tensed until I couldn't hold it in any longer. I shattered hard. The kind of climax that stole sound from my throat, left my fingers trembling and my vision swimming. Darren cursed behind me, his voice strained. "Don't move. Don't you dare." But I did. I pushed back against him with everything I had left, driving him over the edge. His moan cracked through the silence, raw and guttural as he spilled into me, his body jerking once, twice, before collapsing against my back. Blake was seconds behind. I took him deep one last time, feeling his pulse, his breath, the way his fingers tangled hard in my hair, as he groaned my name like it meant something. And then stillness. No one spoke. The only sound in the room was our breathing, heavy, uneven, real. I fell to the mattress, body spent, heart racing. The sheets were damp beneath me, my skin slick, my throat dry. Blake sat beside me first, brushing hair from my cheek. His expression was softer now, less guarded. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. But the truth was, I wasn't sure because I didn't feel broken. I felt alive, like I had just woken up from a long, quiet sleep. Darren came around to sit on the other side of me. He didn't touch me, just watched me. His brows pulled slightly, as if trying to read something behind my eyes. "Was it what you expected?" he asked. I didn't answer because I didn't know what I expected anymore. What I knew was this. I wasn't the same girl who opened that door to Mr. Dalton a few nights ago. That girl had limits, lines she wouldn't cross. This girl, she had already crossed them, and wasn't looking back. I sat up slowly, letting the robe fall from my shoulders, no longer caring about modesty. "I don't regret it," I said, mostly to myself. Darren's eyes flicked to Blake. And then Blake smiled. "I think we all knew you wouldn't." The next morning, the room smelled like sweat after shave and something I couldn't name, something like change. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in the dress from the night before, heels discarded somewhere near the door. My hair was a mess, my lips swollen, my thighs sore. But I didn't feel ashamed. I felt powerful, the kind of power that doesn't come from being in control, but from realizing you never needed to ask for permission in the first place. Blake was already gone. Darren lingered just long enough to pour himself a cup of Mr. Dalton's coffee before slipping out without a word. I didn't blame him. There was nothing left to say. Mr. Dalton reappeared a few minutes later. Clean shirt, fresh shave, same knowing smirk. He leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "They were impressed," he said. I didn't respond. "You did good, Riley. Real good." I stood up slowly, adjusting the strap of my dress. "How much?" He raised an eyebrow, then chuckled. "Straight to business, I like that." He handed me a small envelope. I opened it. The cash was thick, more than rent, more than groceries, more than I had ever seen in one place. I should have felt disgusted, but I didn't because it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about what it proved, that I wasn't powerless, that I could play the game and win. Mr. Dalton stepped closer, voice lower now. "There could be more if you want." I met his eyes. He didn't have to explain. More nights, more men, more envelopes. I could become a name passed quietly between the wealthy and well-connected. Riley Carter, the girl who knows exactly what you need. I looked back at the cash, in my hands, then down at my bare feet on the cold hardwood floor, and suddenly, I wasn't sure because somewhere in the blur of pleasure and control, I had lost track of one thing, myself. "Do you want this?" he asked. His tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp. Not "can you handle it?" or "are you sure?" just "do you want it?" And that was the question, wasn't it? This wasn't about survival anymore. This was about identity, about whether I was still the girl trying to make ends meet or someone else entirely. I took a breath, held it. The air felt different now. He watched me closely, like he already knew which way I was leaning, but the truth was, I didn't know. Not yet, because part of me wanted more, and part of me wanted to forget it ever happened, so I gave him the only answer I had. "Let me think about it." He nodded, then walked past me, brushing my arm as he left the room. "Take your timing," he said, "but don't take too long. The world doesn't wait forever." And just like that, I was alone, standing in the middle of a room that no longer felt like mine. A girl who crossed the line and now had to decide, do I turn back or keep walking? I picked up the envelope again, stared at the weight of it. Whatever I chose next, I knew one thing for sure. There was no going back to who I was before.